Good evening, guys. I'm just waiting for more students to join. Quite a lot said they are joining. So I just want to wait another minute or two before I start. In the meantime, if you can just please post your student numbers in the chat section. Thanks. Guys, I think it's only going to be the two of you, it seems, but I'm not going to let the class go by. So we can start. Just to confirm, you guys are part of the WhatsApp group.
Yes, I am.
Okay, Zukiswa,
Sorry, Charles, can you repeat that? Part of what?
are you part of the WhatsApp group?
Oh, no, I'm not.
Can you just quickly send me from your me a WhatsApp to that number? I shared the question that we will be doing on that group.
All right.
And then we can start. Okay, guys, we can start. So guess what? I'm going to share the question with you right now.
Thanks, Charles. I just got into the WhatsApp now.
I saw there. Just invite you. I'm sending you a link and you can just click on that link and it will add you to the group.
Okay, thanks.
Hey guys, I'm going to try and do a few questions. So let's start. I'm going to focus especially on exam technique, since I think that is where that's the most problematic area. AUE3701 is quite a comprehensive module. There's a lot that you need to understand and get used to. It builds on your second year modules. That was a lot of theory, whereas the third year modules will be a lot of practical application. You are given a scenario and you need to apply your theoretical knowledge on that given information. But the theory remains very important. They can focus on that. So when you start with your question, you always go to the last, the required section first. So the required section says, discuss the 3 stages of pre-engagement activities and 1 consideration in each of these areas. List the factors extracted from the above information which would have an impact on your audit strategy. In other words, your scope, your direction, and the timing, and list 4 different types of specialized audit evidence which need to be obtained based on the information provided above. Give a brief explanation of each. List and explain the assertions applicable to transactions and events. Okay, so let's quickly go through the information. I'm going to read the given section. You have recently accepted the engagement to audit the financial statements of Game On Pty Limited after the retirement of the company's previous auditor from the auditing profession. The follow and management. Sorry, guys, you guys can still see the screen. Sorry for the interruption there. Mine just went blank. I just want to make sure you guys can still see.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. Okay, I'm going to start with this paragraph. Again, the company runs a virtual record keeping system in which all accounting and system documents are electronically generated, processed, stored, and signed through the use of various passwords, fingerprint identification, and cornea recognition technology for highly secure transactions. The company's accounting, production, and payroll software are interfaced with each other. In addition, their accounting and production software interfaces with their customers' production systems, enabling online transfer of order, purchase, and billing data. Game On Pty Limited has a limited international and lucrative client base. The company imports its materials and manufactures the gaming equipment locally. However, the company has various warehouses in London, New York, Tokyo, and Sydney, with a small staff complement at each which it uses to store finished goods intended for its international customers. Until such time as the parts are physically ordered by these clients, the company retains ownership of the finished goods until such time as they are delivered to the clients. Apologies for that, guys, but my computer froze on this side. I'm not sure why. Apologies for that. Okay, there we go again. Okay, so we did that part. The company retains, because let's just start there. Apologies for the interruption. The company retains ownership of the finished goods until such time as they are delivered to the clients. That's a very important. Kishwa?
We keep losing you, Charles.
Sorry about that. I don't know if there's a break in the network or what's going on, but there's something suddenly happened. I'm not sure what, but you guys can hear me now.
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay, so the question was, are you guys familiar with the term hedge? To hedge.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
No,
Zukiswa?
no, I'm not.
Okay. So hedging means if you know you are going to pay a supplier in a foreign currency in the future, you can go into you can enter into contracts where you basically tell it. I'm explaining this in very layman's terms because it gets very technical, but the concept is actually very simple. Where you actually say, to hedge myself, in other words, to create a buffer against possible future losses, I'm happy with the exchange rate as it is today, because that gives me certainty of what I will be paying. So if I have to pay someone $200, but only 3 months from now, to hedge myself, I will go and purchase from the bank $200 today. In other words, I will literally exchange money today, and you basically say you purchase dollars today at the exchange rate today, and then when you have to pay, you have that amount already in dollars, and you can just pay in dollars. Whereas in the future, that the exchange rate could have actually gone against you, and the dollar rate, the rand could have weakened, and you could have actually ended up paying more for that creditor than you should have. So you actually purchase today to hedge yourself against future fluctuations in the currency. So, but the point there is that it's technical. So when you plan your audit and you read the information that's given, obviously the difficulty of the audit and the type of audit is something you as an auditor need to consider, because you need to consider two things in planning stage. You need to consider whether the client is the correct client for you, if I can say it again in a simple way. And secondly, are you the right auditor for the client? Meaning, if it's a risky client, would we want that client? And secondly, do we have the necessary skill, competence, technical expertise, staff complement, and all of that to render the service that we are charging this client or are going to contractually agree to render for this client? Can we deliver that service? So in the given information, you always need to highlight those things, because that will affect your decision at the end of the day. So just to discuss that. Then during the year under review, the company's Tokyo warehouse was destroyed in a fire that was started at a nearby restaurant. The intense heat of the fire rendered the machine parts unusable. As a result, the client for whom these parts were intended suffered production losses due to the supply delays and has instituted legal action against the company to recover such damages. Again, we need to consider subsequent events, going concern considerations, just to if you quickly think about it, there's a reason why that information is given.
Okay.
The company's credit policy requires payment within 60 days. The banking accounts are operated in South Africa. Customers are quoted in euro, US dollar, Australian dollars, and yen, and invoices are issued accordingly. When invoices are recorded, they are converted at the ruling spot rate on the date of the transaction. Receipts are captured at the amount that appears on the bank statement and date of receipt. The foreign currency balances owing by the customers are computed manually. The customers are all very cooperative. Balances are few and are very material to the financial statements. Okay. The reporting requirements of the company are strict, with the audit deadline being 6 weeks after year end. Another thing in the planning. Okay, so moving on, I want you guys to participate because you guys are writing tomorrow.
On Saturday.
On Saturday. So use this session as a participation session because you're going to get questions like this probably in the exam, and then you must be ready to answer them. So let's see if you guys can start with question A. I'm going to give you say 6 minutes. So discuss the 3 stages of pre-engagement activities and 1 consideration in each of these areas. If you are done, you can just click on the hand function, and that'll give me an indication if you guys are done, or you can just unmute and say you are done. Okay, guys, can we discuss? Okay, so there are a few things that obviously we need to take into account. Like I said, we will do one of the main things that we need to have a look at is a new client investigation. We are taking this client on for the first time, so there's quite a few things that we need to consider. And in this information, we are given those things that we can consider. If you read the first paragraph, it immediately tells you that the company is in good standing. It's received numerous awards. It's all of that. It's good information. Both the products are good. The management processes are good. So that is in favor of the client. But we don't look for things that's just in favor of the client. If you look at the very last section where they talk about that, or the paragraph where they talk about possible litigation, if they
Can I? Okay, sorry, Charles, to disturb you. Oh, you're saying we do not look for things in fact, because the first paragraph I was thinking about when it was saying the past few years audit reports have been unmodified.
yes.
Isn't what we should be? Okay.
So unmodified is good. So remember, an unqualified audit opinion, is that a good or bad report?
Unqualified is bad report. It should be qualified.
No, unqualified is a good report. The name,
It's a good
the name,
report.
yes, the name is misleading. Let me explain.
Mhm.
If I tell you, Sunny Liswa, you wrote your exam and it went very well, but you forgot to answer 3 questions. I just qualified my opinion. So I gave a but.
Okay.
So the moment that there's a but, then you know it's a qualify. We're qualifying our opinion. It's not qualify as in you qualify as a chartered accountant or you have qualities or good. It's not good. It means we give a qualification to that report. We're telling the users of the audit report that the company's performance has been good. You can rely on the financial information except for inventory. We couldn't audit inventory because of a scope issue.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so that's that. Then you qualify. So when it says they unmodified, it's actually unqualified. We didn't have any buts in there. It's a good report. So that's in favor of the client.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is we shouldn't just look for things that's in favor of us taking the client. We should also consider the not so good stuff that can possibly, doesn't say it's a bad client, but it can have complications and we need to list that. So we need to consider this litigation process where this company is being sued. So there's a few things here. We have a plant that burned down. We have a pending litigation. So that affects our going concern. And the moment that the going concern issue is there, it means that the client there's a possibility of the client defaulting. In other words, the client become bankrupt or something like that. So we don't then want to be involved if we already foresee things like that. So that's something that we have to consider. So the client is successful. There's good business decisions. The client has a good audit report. So we discussed that. There's management integrity seems to be good. They received how can I say, they received accolades for the way they run the business. And then obviously the industry, it's a very good industry. It's a very lucrative industry. So we obviously want to be associated with a very lucrative industry. So that's the new client investigation. Then we obviously need to look at us as auditors, our skills and competence. So the question is rather silent in terms of what competence and what skills we have, but it does give us information that we need to consider. So in the absence of any information being given about the audit team, we need to consider in any case what the audit team need to consist on, and the knowledge and the experience or and expertise that must be there for us to be able to finish and finalize the audit successfully. So something that immediately stands out here is if you look at this, where is that? Okay, so first thing, the company imports. We spoke about the hedging. So they can be complicated financial transactions like hedging. We need to consist of the knowledge to treat those financial transactions with using the correct financial treatment according to international financial reporting standards. So we need to have a sound knowledge of that. Then it says there, so that's dealing with import. So you can say a lot about that. And then it talks about the financial statements, because remember, one of the things that we need to consider before we take on a client is what does the financial system look like? Does the client have a system that can produce reliable financial information? So if you look at the section, why can't I find it now? We spoke about the hedging. There we go. That highlighted paragraph. They say that the company's accounting, production, and payroll software are interfaced with each other. In addition, their accounting and production software interfaces with their customers' production system. So it's a very intricate financial system that they're running here. In other words, we will definitely have to use computer-assisted audit techniques, CATs. So our audit team needs to possess the ability to use CATs, or we need to have an expert within our company that can perform that function for us. So we need to consider that. Then if you look at where this company is situated, they talk about the company has various warehouses. There's one in London, New York, Tokyo, Sydney, so there can be geographical challenges. It's expensive to travel, and we will probably have to send people to those groups, to those countries to go and have stock takes, other verifications. Can we do that? Do we have the budget to do that? Because we're going to charge the client something, and will we be able to, with what we charge the client, cover our own costs? We need to consider that. And then lastly on this point, something that concerns me is they say the reporting requirements of the company are strict, with the audit deadline being 6 weeks after year end. So yeah, if you've never audited, you might think that 6 weeks is a long time for an audit. Trust me, 6 weeks fly by so quickly. But it doesn't matter whether you knew it or not. If they say that, you need to list a consideration. So you need to say, do we have the necessary staff complement to finish the audit in that time? Because we know it up front. We are being given that detail to consider. So if we can't finish an audit within six weeks, then obviously we need to decline. So then there's a last one that I would like to discuss there, and it's actually something that Psycho recommends. It's the ethical requirement. So it's the ethical requirement as per Psycho's Code of Professional Conduct. So we need to make sure that we adhere to that conduct. In other words, we need to make sure that there are no perceived, and it's very important to use that word as well, perceived negative effects on our independence and objectivity. So don't we have any dealings, investments, or any other related attachment to this client that can affect our opinion at the end of the day? But it is very careful there to note that, and even if you read the information, we are not always there talking about factual effect on our independence. Perceived independence is a problem. If you see someone rendering a service to someone else and you see that person gives the other person a set of golf clubs, yes, we cannot say that the one person's objectivity is now impaired, but it can be perceived. You immediately think in the back of your head, I hope that guy is still thinking objectively, you know? Um, so that always be aware of that perceived objectivity as well, or influence on your objectivity. And then I think also just mention the letter of engagement. You need to agree the terms upfront with the client, because in that letter, all of these considerations are taken into account, where we tell the management of the client, of the business, what they will be responsible for. We list there what we will be responsible for, what our scope will be that we agreed upon, as well as the timeline of the final report. Because at the end of the day, why do we audit? We audit to issue a report, because that's the thing that the users of the financial statements will use when they make decisions. So letter of engagement also extremely important. Okay. Just a pause there. Are you guys happy with us doing this participation thing and then giving you some time to think about the question and then we unpack?
Yes, it's fine, Charles.
100%. Okay, let's start with B then. List the factors extracted from the above information in which you would have an impact on your audit strategy. In other words, the scope, direction, and timing. I'm going to minimize a bit or make it a bit smaller. I'm not sure whether everyone has got the question. I did distribute it over the WhatsApp group. So I'm going to leave it there. It's the smallest I can make it. If I make it any smaller, I don't think anyone will read. So let's say another 5 minutes and then we will reconvene.
Sorry, Charles, can I ask? Hello? Okay.
Yes, Sanalisa.
Oh,
I
okay.
was
So,
talking to while I'm on mute.
sorry. Oh, okay. Also struggling to unmute. So we have to list these the information based on this extra. So we
Yes,
group them according to the scope, the direction, and the timing.
correct.
So for the scope, um, because this is the scope, meaning because it says that it has various warehouses, London, New
Yes,
York,
correct.
Tokyo, and then Sydney.
Yeah.
So that would be yeah, that would be the scope. So if we have the experience and we have experts um to audit to audit.
Okay, so you that's a very good point that you are listing there, but be very careful to not miss out on points.
Okay.
You've mentioned one point now. You can actually make that a bit bigger. That the fact that they are in foreign countries is a geographical problem for us. In travel, like you said, that affects our scope. Or we need to consider that when we determine our scope because we need to include those countries. Secondly, those countries have got different legislation.
Okay.
So we need to also take into account that country's legislation, uh, uh, things that might limit our scope or might have a negative effect on our scope um, because of that legislation. So that's definitely one thing. And then the fact that they are in different countries brings the other point.
Okay.
The valuation because of the foreign exchange. The complex application of, as I said earlier, the complex application of IFRS. We need to take into account the foreign exchange rates
Exchange rates. Okay.
and when does risk and rewards transfer, because that affects the value at which we will be classifying in or recording inventory. So that's definitely a point. So you see that 1 point can be 3 points.
Okay.
So in auditing, and I'm highlighting that deliberately because I've made that mistake before. Never assume the examiner knows.
Okay.
Even if something is obvious, list it. Because remember, something that is obvious for you might not be obvious for someone else. So I used to make that mistake a lot. Luckily, mine is almost 10 years ago. But I still remember that. I used to list two little things. And then when I would look at the memo, I'm like, but this is obvious. List those obvious things. Okay, yeah, just to elaborate that. Anything else that you guys mentioned or saw in the information that would affect the scope specifically?
Sorry, Joseph, maybe I can come in. I'm thinking maybe time as well would affect the scope, because if you've got limited time, then you can't really maybe dig deep and go in as far as you would like to go. Not sure if that's something.
I almost wanted to say no, and then when you said what you wanted to say, that's actually a very interesting point. Because yes, we don't have a lot of time to complete the audit,
The audit.
and that is not something we will discuss on the timing, because timing is when. When will we do the audit? When should what be done? So that's important. But what you just mentioned is a very interesting point. Definitely, because we only have 6 weeks, we can only um, uh, do a certain X amount of work, and we need to consider whether that is reasonable or whether sorry, not reasonable. I'm falling over my own words here. Whether that will affect our audit opinion at the end. So yeah, good point. Then, as I mentioned earlier, the accounting system. Remember, the accounting system is a very the information system is it can be difficult. It might affect what we can look at. We need to consider that. So although you've already mentioned that in part A, you can use it again because the information technology will greatly impact. Will have a great impact on the performance of audit procedures. Because you will execute different type of audit procedures. If you think about the number of accounts that you can look at using CATs is a lot more than if it was a manual system. Because now we can just plug in our audit software and we can run and check for things across all the accounting records. We can actually do a much more thorough audit in various ways. So that's definitely something. And then that goes together with the use of CATs and the availability of experts on that computer-assisted audit techniques. Okay. Then something that I think affects the scope greatly, and something that we can actually easily miss, is if you read the information, what client are you dealing with? You are dealing with Game On, Pty Limited. There are certain statutory audit requirements which the Companies Act regulate. So that's very important. So let's move on to timing of the audit. What do you guys think there?
So we're saying the timing is when?
Yes. In other words, we need to consider when would be the best to execute certain audit procedures, the audit itself. We need to consider things like that. So let's stay with the scope. The first thing that you mentioned there, Annalise, is the location. So we also need to do stock counts.
Okay.
So timing, when will we perform those stock counts? We need to discuss that with management.
Okay.
Then we have, if you, from the given information, they say here we have this accounting software thing of ours links also with our clients, and then those people purchase stuff on us from us on debit as well. So we need to do data circularization, and we need to plan. When are we going to take? When are we going to do that? Because we only have 6 weeks. And then obviously the timing of the audit deadline itself will be something we need to consider, the 6 weeks that we need to finish. And then obviously, because it's our first time auditing this client, we also need to plan when do we want to speak with the previous auditor as well as management. We need to plan those things. So the timing. Anything else you guys can think of there? Okay, then let's move on to the direction. What will influence the direction of the audit? So let's have a look here. They say if we look at our client base, they say we don't have a very large client base. Where did they say that? Where did they say that? I read that. For years, been giving them in the past few years. I read it somewhere. We have a small client base. In other words, the volume of transactions isn't that high, meaning the information that we need to gather from our debtors wouldn't be that much. So volume, we need to consider the volume of transactions. We need to consider the volume of material balances, as they say in the question. They say there's low a number of those balances, but they are material. That they mention here right at the bottom. I think balances are few and are very material to the financial statement. So not a lot of balances, but all of them are material. If we look at the direction of the audit, that first paragraph is very important, where they say the company has been established for years, specializing in gaming equipment. The past few years, it has a very good reputation in its industry and has received numerous ISO quality and certifications pertaining to products as well as business processes and management achievements. So that talks about sound internal controls. In other words, we might do more or less internal controls, rely a bit more on internal controls. In other words, that will affect the volume of transactions that we will select for substantive testing. Okay. We need to consider this litigation that's happening, because in accounting terms, that is a contingent liability. We need to make sure that the financial statements clearly states in the correct amount of detail the litigations, the effect of that contingent liability that the litigation will have. So very, very important there. Okay, so that's the matters affecting the direction, and you can elaborate on those, include others. That's just an idea of how to interpret the information. Okay, let's do the last two questions together. Let's add them together. The first, they say list 4 different types of specialized audit evidence which need to be obtained based on the information provided above. Give a brief explanation of each, and then list and explain the assertions applicable to transactions and events. I just want to confirm, list assertions was a part of your module, hey? I don't have the study guide open in front of me, so I just need to confirm with you. Sanilisa?
No, because the topics that we're doing is the preliminary engagement, planning and audit, obtaining audit evidence, internal control, and test of controls.
Correct. Okay, so you guys don't, there's not an introduction to assertions. Then
Assertion, the balance sheet and the income statement.
Yes.
Okay, income state items.
Yes. So that's not in your module.
No.
100%. Then let's only focus on C, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you 2 minutes for C. List 4 different types of specialized audit evidence which need to be obtained based on the information provided above. Give a brief explanation of each.
Can I try? So we're saying list different types of specialized audit evidence which you need to be obtained based on the information. So we did say that
Yes.
we have to be able to use CATs. So isn't that specialized audit
Yes.
to be able to audit this company because of the type of systems that they use?
Correct.
And specialized audit evidence.
Think of inventory. Inventory is a bit specialized in this case. There's international travel involved, there's Forex involved, all of that. So if you think along those lines, then you cover inventory. Think about bank and cash, for instance, because they speak of the FEC contract. So the evidence that you would want to obtain is obviously the proof of these FEC contracts, because since the rand is very volatile, we would obviously want to make sure that the company is well hedged, and that we are treating the accounting surrounding this hedging contracts accurately. So we would like to obtain the contracts, bank balances, any other commitments and obligations, everything relating to bank and cash, because that will prove our liquidity as well, our cash availability. And then the company has got a credit policy. The company has got a credit policy and it requires payments with 60 days. So we,
I was reading the company's credit policy requirements, payment within 60 days.
Yes. So there will obviously be debtors, and since it's a very lucrative market and it's expensive products, we will probably be owed a lot of money, or the client would be owed a lot of money. We need to do proper debtors circularization. So due to the revaluation requirements of foreign debtors, I think it's really significant, because we need to obtain external confirmation of this foreign currency balances that's outstanding at year end. And then it would be very important to reperform those calculations, because remember, although we purchase, although the revenue has been recognized, the value of debtors will change according to the Forex rate. So there's a lot of recalculation that must be performed using the correct Forex rate at date of reporting. And then something else that's standing out in this question is that litigation of relating to the fire. So they say here, where is that?
During the
yeah. As a result, the client for whom these parts were intended suffered production losses due to supply delays and has instituted legal action against the company to recover such damages. So the moment that there's legal action, we need to get proof of the company's, of the client's legal team or their attorney. So we need to get that confirmation from the attorney that this litigation, what is his opinion about this litigation, because that will affect our contingent liability in the financial statements. Everybody happy? Okay, before I post the next question, I just need to make sure that everybody in this chat has posted their student numbers. So please, if you haven't done so,
where do we post our student numbers?
in the chat section.
Seems
So
like
there
I'm not able to.
It says there's a chat section. You can just click on that, and if you can't, you can also in the WhatsApp group just post your student number there as well.
Okay, I'll just post in the, because I'll post in the WhatsApp group.
100%. Okay, then just to confirm, everybody else is in the WhatsApp group or on the WhatsApp group, because I'm posting the question that we are going to be doing there right now. Final question 2. Okay, I've sent it. Okay. Let's quickly go through that question. Always go to the required part first. So it's part A and part B. B is just missing in the next section. Explain why the understanding the entity and its environment step in the planning and audit is so important. And then B, discuss how you would go about obtaining the necessary understanding of Signage Pty Limited's business to effectively develop the audit strategy and plan the 30 June 2011 audit. Okay, so let's have a look at the information. You have recently been appointed as senior in charge of the audit of Signage Pty Limited with a year end of 30 June 2011. The company is a subsidiary of Signs Limited, and all companies in the group are required to have their annual financial statements externally audited. The company produces a wide selection of signs and signboards, ranging from small signs used on doors, etc., to large freestanding road signs. Traffic and road signs form the major portion of the company's sales. Signage Pty Limited only supplies signs. It does not attach or construct them. Your firm, which is located in Port Elizabeth, has held the appointment of auditor for some years, but you have not worked on the audit before. No work on the 2011 audit has taken place. Your audit manager also attached a note to the letter suggesting that you get started on the engagement immediately by attending the monthly meeting between Mr. Rock and Mr. Stone, the financial controller and internal audit manager, respectively, of Signage Pty Limited, which was scheduled for the next day. You arranged to attend, and despite your lack of knowledge of Signage Pty Limited, you were able to take note of the following. The company's year-end inventory count has been scheduled for 30 June 2011. Inventory consists of raw materials for manufacture, work in progress, the manufacturing process is quite complex, finished goods in the form of standard signs manufactured by Signage Pty Limited, as well as custom-made signs for specific customers awaiting invoicing and delivery. Inventory is held at the company's 4 manufacturing facilities located in Bloemfontein, Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Port Elizabeth. The company has numerous debtors, and accounts receivable has always been a material amount. The financial controller mentioned that the company was experiencing difficulty in receiving a number of material amounts owed by certain provincial and national road authorities. This has arisen out of disputes over road signs which Signage Pty Limited has manufactured and invoiced, but which bear the names of the towns and streets which have had their names changed during or subsequent to the manufacturing of the signs. The authorities concerned have refused to accept these signs, claiming that Signage Pty Limited should have been aware of the name changes as they are published in the Government Gazette. Signage Pty Limited have counted that they manufactured the signs per the order. Mr. Rock indicated that the failure to recover amounts owed has placed serious strain on cash flow and could affect future dealings with these customers. Signage Pty Limited's lawyer are very undecided about what the outcome of court cases would be. As a matter of course, Signage Pty Limited's internal auditors perform ongoing reviews and tests of controls on the company's accounting systems. Having attended the meeting between Mr. Stone and Mr. Rock, you decided to commence with planning your audit right away, as suggested by your audit manager. Not very on, hey? Explain why the understanding the entity and its environment step in planning an audit is so important. I'm going to give you about, say 2 minutes just to draft or dot a few notes to discuss, and then we will discuss.
Can I try, Charles? So
Yes.
it's important to understand the entity in order to identify the risk of material misstatement at the financial statement level and the accession level.
100%, definitely. What else is important in that you need to consider when you plan the audit? We talk about materiality. And materiality is assessed at various stages of the audit. The first being planning materiality. So that's very important, and I need to understand the business before I can do my planning materiality. And then you've mentioned the assess the risk of material misstatement. What else do you need to have a very good understanding of? We need to understand how things work. In other words, we need to understand how the accounting system works, what accounting system they use, as well as internal controls. Then obviously, as you would discuss the client or the audit, and you will do research on the client and listen to the various meetings, you need to identify and always be vigilant and apply professional skepticism to identify possible significant risks.
Okay.
That's very important. And then what is the final one? What is the one that we really need to understand or gain a good understanding of? We've now looked at everything internally. What about the external factors? We need to understand the industry, because remember, each industry has got its own trends, its own way of working, its own items that's unique to that industry. If you compare, for instance, the insurance industry with the engineering industry, I mean, they are different in almost all aspects. And although we report on using international financial reporting standards, the way things work will affect you in how you would plan the audit. Your audit needs to adjust. So we need to look at the industry, conditions that can affect the industry, court cases in this case, for instance. How do we deal with litigations and things like that? So that's also part of to understand the audit before you can really plan it. So if you don't understand the client's business, or if a good understanding of the client's business is obtained, none of what we've just discussed can be achieved. So we cannot effectively develop an audit strategy or plan the audit. We need to really gain a good understanding of the client's business. So I mean, it's our understanding of this client's business that is actually the framework in which we will exercise what I've said earlier, our professional judgment. So we would also, in planning the audit, consider additional stuff as well. I mean, we're dealing with debtors, so there might be bad debts, and bad debts is an estimate. So we need to evaluate estimates. We are going to listen to various people explaining various sections of the client to us. So we need to be vigilant for and to recognize conflicting information. If we ask management questions, or if we bring audit queries, say for instance, to the attention of management, we need to also evaluate their reaction to these audit queries. We must understand what accounting policies will be applicable to this client, because at the end of the day, we are auditing the financial statements, and the business that the client conducts will attract certain specific accounting policies, and we need to apply those policies and make sure that it has been correctly applied. What else can we think of? Let's mention two more.
So we mentioned the internal controls.
Yes. I mean, we spoke about the industry as well, and I'm just going to highlight that there are certain things that happens with our client, or the way our client reacts to certain events, as well as the financial performance, can in some way be compared to the trends of the industry. So it is also very important, as I said earlier, to make sure that when you look at external information, look at the industry that the client is functioning in, and be able to develop analytical procedures that will enable you to look at trends and compare trends with the industry. So our client has got a stock turnover ratio of X. What can we compare that with the industry? I mean, we know we can't always compare everything with the industry, but it's a very good indication. And those type of exercises enables us to ask questions that can actually lead to something more, that can actually assist us in the planning, or that can actually uncover something that we might have missed in other procedures. So analytical procedures are extremely important, and the comparison of trends between similar companies, the company and its industry, and so on. Okay. Everybody happy with that? Okay, let's look at the last one. And there I'm going to give you some time to attend to that question. Discuss how you would go about obtaining the necessary understanding of Signage Pty Limited's business to effectively develop the audit strategy and plan the 30 June 2011 audit. Also going to make it a bit smaller and see if you guys can see most of it. Just tell me if it's, that's too small. That's the biggest I can get, the best I can get it. But I did share it over the WhatsApp group. Guys, let's say to start with 6 minutes, and then we can discuss. Okay, how's it going? You guys ready? Can we discuss? Okay, so I'm gonna discuss a few things that I would have done, but please, this is your session, so you're welcome to participate, unmute. It will only benefit you as well, and then we can discuss. So obviously, if I'm presented with doing a first audit, I would a lot of detail review the previous audit that was done, because the previous audit was also done by our company, by our auditing firm. I'm just the new senior, so I will do a very detailed review of the previous year's audit workbook, the audit papers. Okay. I will look at the each another thing that ties in with the audit work papers is we have if you work for a firm that is auditing a client year on year, you open a permanent file where you file important things relevant to the client each year. So I would definitely look at that permanent file, and it will also be my job to update that permanent file with any new information that I obtain. We spoke about Zukiswa.
I just wanted to ask, like, along these same lines of reviewing the audit papers, would it be allowed or beneficial to meet the previous senior in charge?
Definitely, that's perfect, because our company did the audit, so I would definitely like to meet the previous senior and have a discussion. The only thing there that is always very important, and it's always a high risk when you have a firm that has been auditing a client for years, is that you have this risk of familiarity. We did this audit last year. We're just going to do it the same way we did it last year. In other words, we are almost like racehorses with those things over their eyes as they race. And I don't know what, I'm not a horse race fanatic. I don't know what that term is, but it's almost like we have tunnel vision and we just look at what was done last year and just do that. So always be very vigilant that it doesn't impair your objectiveness to be always vigilant to new information. So speak to the previous senior, look at the previous audit paper, but always be there's a fine line between reinventing the wheel. In other words, don't reinvent new audit procedures. That's not necessary. But you must still do a planning that's impartial and objective. So very important that you take the information that you can get from previous seniors and the previous working papers and such, and you make sure that you just add them to your process, but still complete your full process of gaining an understanding.
Thanks for that. Thanks.
Thanks, Giswa. We spoke about the industry briefly. So in my planning, I would definitely obtain, what do they call it? Trade journals. You know, each trade has got their own journals and reading material, magazines, etc. And specifically focus on articles that is relevant to the client. If there's something big happening in a specific industry, you would want to know if that thing is affecting your client and how is it affecting your client. Is it negative? Is it positive? If there's suddenly a big economic recession, you would want to know about it. A nice practical example, if we look at our current economy, a lot of what do you call it, rental car agencies are dumping their fleets into the second-hand car dealership market, meaning that the second-hand market is being flooded with stock, meaning the demand or the availability is no longer a problem, and that means people can shop around for a better deal, meaning dealerships will have to lower their prices. And if you read those articles, you'd have known about that, and you could have asked management, listen, I'm auditing you, and say, for instance, this specific client in my analogy is a car dealership. I could have asked them, how is this affecting your revenue, for instance? So it might be something big like an economic recession that affects all industries, or it can be very specific. And you will only know that if you do research in the specific industry, relevant news and things like that. Yeah, just keep research on the internet, newspapers, articles, on that specific client even. Google the client. It sounds dumb, but we have a very big resource called the internet. Do research on the client, on the industry. Then, so yeah, I do, Zakiswa, you did have a very valid point to discuss, to speak with the previous senior, but I would even elaborate on that and say, have a meeting or a combined meeting with the entire previous audit team, and take notes of what everybody has got to say. So very, very important on that. Also, when we discussed understanding the business, we spoke about litigations and things like that. So make sure that the client is currently not bound by specific legislation. Because remember, each industry, for instance, the banking industry, is regulated by the Banks Act. Insurance companies must adhere to the Short-Term Insurance Act or the Insurance Act as such. There's lots of regulations. The Reserve Bank regulations and all of those regulations, and they affect the audit. I need to understand them and their effect on the client. Then, if you look at the company structure, if you look there, the second sentence, they say the company is a subsidiary. So your client is a subsidiary. So since it's a subsidiary, there's a group and there's a holding company. So arrange a meeting with the holding company's auditors. And discuss with them any obligations, duties. Ask them if they can have if you can have the audit pack. What type of questionnaires do they complete? What schedules are there? Do they perform intercompany reconciliations? What is the group accounting policy? Deadlines and reporting requirements. All those things can be discussed with the group's or the group auditors, because we're not the group auditors. We are just the specific companies or the specific subsidiaries auditors. So we can also have a meeting with those auditors as well. And then, as the question also said, you really have to meet with Mr. Rock. I think he was the financial controller, as soon as possible, because he will be able to give or shed some light on the risks that the company and the industry face. Accounting policies. You definitely need to unpack the cash flow problems. They speak there about debtors not paying, and that's having a strain on the cash flow situation. What is the forecasts relating to that? So very important. Then I will definitely meet with Mr. Stone, I think was the internal audit manager. He's the one person that will be able to give us a very good idea of internal controls, because that's one of the main things that internal auditors do, is they do tests of controls and specifically focus on internal controls, the testing thereof and giving opinions. So yeah, it wouldn't hurt to definitely or it's important to meet with him and obtain audit reports. Ask for the latest audit reports on the more important sections of the company, and go through them and see if any weaknesses have been identified and how that might affect your approach, your plan. Because remember, we are busy planning this audit. We spoke about litigation, so have meetings with the legal advisors and discuss court cases that's pending, where we are being sued or where we have sued other customers, for instance, thinking of those customers that's not paying, that provincial customer. What else can there be? They spoke about different locations. We need to understand the extent of business at these different branches where inventory is held. I need to get an understanding of that. And then also, I'm so sure I read Durban somewhere. I can't remember if there was another question that I did. Because it's only in Bloemfontein. So I'm sure I read Durban. Anyway, yeah, so make sure all your different locations where the company is situated, that we are definitely gaining as much information about what is going on there, what is the operations, because that will affect how we will plan this audit. Then other important information will definitely be the financial reports. We want to go through the financial reports ourselves first. We would want to go look at the minutes of meetings. Very important, because decisions are made in meetings, and it must be minuted. All the standard operating procedures, so policies, procedures, etc. I spoke about the financial reports, specifically the monthly ones, that can give you a lot of insight. It doesn't have to be the final set. So yeah, I think those are very important. And then always, before I forget, always analytical procedures. Specifically your preliminary analytical review on the most recent financial information that you can get from that meeting with Mr. Rock. Was Mr. Rock? Yeah, Mr. Rock, the financial controller. So yes, very important. Okay, any questions there? Okay, guys. Any other questions that you guys might have on tomorrow's question, on Saturday's exam? Are there any anything you would like to discuss specifically from your side? I can see.
Just one question on my side, Charles. Sorry.
Sorry, Zikiswa.
I just wanted to ask, is it more important, like when we're answering questions, to, like, for an example, with this last one that we just did, to answer specifically at what you would do, but maybe more the reasons why you would do certain things?
Both. It's always very important to say what you will do and why you will do it. But be very careful not to write too much. And sometimes I think it depends on the situation. Sometimes it's not really necessary to explain, because the item explains itself. For instance, if I say what I've just said, if you meet with Mr. Rock to obtain these additional informations, for instance, like minutes of meetings, we all know what is minutes of meetings and why we would want that. There's discussions that can give you insight to the company, and that's minuted. And reading those minutes will give you understanding of what you would want to focus on in your planning, and might bring new items that you didn't even think of. that you would further want to discuss with management. So it's a very, you must be careful not to write too much and not too little. So, but be concise, you understand? So, yeah,
Yes.
I hope I answered your question there.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Any other questions, guys? Now's your time to ask. So while you guys think of more questions to ask me, I'm going to share a final question on the group. We're not going to do it in class, but I will give you the answers to that question as well, so that you can work it out. Please don't look at the solution before you have attempted the question. Very important. I'll share it now momentarily. Guys, any other questions? I'm not hearing anything. Are you guys happy? Is there anything else that you want to unpack?
I was gonna ask, is it important for us to do all the questions on the study guide, or rather look at previous question papers?
Again, but I think both is very important. But at this late stage, what I would focus on, look, previous question papers are extremely important.
Okay.
Because it gives you an idea of what. I'll put up the evaluation form right now. Apologies for that. I just want to see, Sunny Lisa, I'm going to get back to you now. Let me just post that evaluation form. I always forget about that. But I'm going to continue answering you in the meantime. Yes, it's very important to do all those questions of like exams. But at this stage, I would say, since you do not have the memos for the exams and you can't really mark yourself, that doesn't say you shouldn't do the questions, but focus on all the required sections. And by reading the required section, visualize in your mind, would you have been able to start the question? Because that is the thing that throws you in the exam the most, is you read a question, and in that moment that you read it, you realize you don't know how to start. So that's very important. If I would say, is look at all the required sections. I think that for me is very important, that you immediately see how you would start the question. Talking specifically about sorry guys, I just want to post this. You can clearly hear I can't multitask.
Can you send it on WhatsApp, the evaluation form?
I will do that as well, if I can find it. Sorry, guys. Yeah, just to continue with that, the questions in the study guide, that is extremely important to do and mark yourself. So both for me have a different purpose. So previous exams, if you don't have the solution and you are limited for time, make sure that you can go through those questions and be able to start the question in your mind. Immediately see, can you see an answer or at least an attempt? So that will already put you in exam mode.
Okay.
The study guide questions is extremely important to do, because they highlight the specific subject matter that's being discussed. So that's why that is extremely important.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm almost there. Guys, just give me a moment. I'm just need to go ask Adele if she can post it for me. Okay, guys, I've posted the evaluation form. Please complete it for me and also make sure that you've posted your student number. I will also post the evaluation form in the WhatsApp group. Just posted it in the WhatsApp group as well. Just let me know if you have trouble opening it. And then you can just put up your hand when you are done, and then I can say goodbye and good luck to you guys. So just let me know when you are done.
Okay, done, Charles. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the
Thank you.
participation. I really appreciated it. And all the best with the exam. I believe it will go well. Put in the best, and that's all you can do for now. So I believe it will go well. And if we don't speak again, God bless, and all the best with the exam.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.